The Shep Naz Podcast begins now.
Welcome to the Shep Naz Podcast. I'm Joe, and I'm your host today. And we are pleased to have with us a missionary that's currently in the field. She's in Thailand. She goes by Angel. Her legal name is Angelina Jones. And but we just want to welcome in Angel this morning, and for her, it's this evening, but thank you very much for coming in. Welcome, Angel.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
So at Shepherd here, each week, we kind of do a part in our service where we do some missionary highlights, and we get to kind of just recognize people around the world that are working on behalf of the kingdom and on behalf of the Nazarene Church. And we wanted to be able to talk a little bit about your ministry. But before we get into all that, we would really like to get to know you a little better. So, Angel, could you tell us a little bit about your background, kind of where you're from and how you got to where you are today a little bit? Let's just, we'll start with the very beginning.
Well, it's a very long story, but so I'm from Maryland. I grew up there from a tiny little town that has one traffic light. So I'm from the country for sure. And then for college, I went to Olivet. And then after college, I ended up in South Korea. I had a friend who went there to teach English, and then I went to visit her, and then after being there, I was like, get me out of the States. I want to go back to Korea. So a few months later, I decided to move, and I taught English there for 8 years, and then knew that I kind of needed to transition into something else. Ended up in Cambodia for a little while, and then now I've been in Thailand for just about 3 years, almost 3 years now.
All right, so that's the snapshot, and now we're going to go back and we're going to dive into that a little bit more because there's a lot to unpack there. Yeah. So if you would, tell us first of all a little bit about how you came to Christ. What's your faith story?
Yeah, this is a question that sometimes people don't like when I answer, but here we go. So I don't actually remember when I first started believing in Christ. That is the question I get asked a lot, but I don't know. I've always gone to church. I grew up in the church. I don't really ever remember a time that I wasn't following Christ. I'm sure there must have been the first day that I decided, but I don't know, because it's just been my whole life for me. So for me, I kind of focus more on what do I believe now and how am I living my life now, rather than when it all first started. But I've grown up in church. I mean, when I was a kid, we were in church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesdays. If there's ever activity on the weekend, we were always there, my whole family.
Well, and, I definitely have some of those shared experiences when you grew up sleeping under a pew on Wednesday nights while your parents were still doing whatever they were doing at church. Sometimes it's a little hard to segment that in to say, okay, on this day, this is when this happened. For you, was there ever a time as you were getting a little older that you felt like, hey, it's not just a matter that I believe in Jesus. It's not just a matter that I've put my trust in him, but I believe that I'm actually called to share this with other people, and not just part-time, but this is going to be my life. How did that come about?
That was a lot later. Basically, I had no intention of doing this. I didn't feel led in this way at all growing up. I went to university and studied history just because I liked it. Like, there was no, I wasn't trying to focus in ministry in that kind of way. And then there was one day that I went to, my grandmother's church would do like a Mother's Day, mother and daughter, breakfast kind of thing. And so the person that was speaking at that event, she has a strong passion for Honduras. And so she was kind of presenting to us all she's not a missionary, but she just goes back and forth all the time. It's like her second home. And so she was telling us a lot. Honestly, I don't remember most of it, but she said one sentence kind of just in passing. She talked about the situation of street children there. And I won't go into very much detail because it's really sad, but essentially just that they're just kind of viewed as pests and nobody wants them around. So if people in the community see these children, they'll call in some kind of authority who will come and actually kill the children as a kind of social cleansing. And I didn't hear anything else that she said. I was just so impacted by that because I thought, like, you know, there's so many difficult things and hard things in the world. You know, there's diseases and there's poverty and lots of things. But if you have someone that cares about you, it makes all the difference. But if no one wants you there, to me, that's like the worst thing that I can imagine. And so at the time, I really didn't, I was thinking about it a lot, but it wasn't kind of leading me in any way. I thought it was just a sad story. And then soon after that is when I moved to Korea, and I was just living my life there. And after, I don't know, maybe about 2 years or so, it just kind of occurred to me one day that, you know, after all that time, I was still thinking about what this woman had said. I was still thinking about these kids. I still felt a burden every time I thought about it. And it just kind of, I realized that I had a responsibility to do something about it. And then once I realized that, I just knew, like, I just 100% knew. And I knew that that's what God had put on my heart to do. And so I don't think I could do anything else, because looking out for the ones and caring for the ones that no one else seems to see or care about, that's what I need to do. But I was, I don't know, mid-20s, I think, at that point. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that's a great spot for us to take a little bit of break. We know that you've had this call on your life, and when we come back, we're going to talk about how did you respond.
I want to live like you and see people how you see them.
I want your mission to be my mission.
I don't want to shrink back from the big questions. Help me to listen deeply as you would.
God, so many things try to hold us back, but let your love speak louder than fear.
By your Spirit, Lord, remind me I don't have to be who I'm not.
I can connect compassionately out of who you made me to be, even out of my brokenness.
Lead me as I share the simple gospel.
Refresh me in the midst of resistance.
Fill me with fresh vision for the next generation.
And let me know the joy of connecting the people you love back to you.
Fear and discouragement can cause us to shrink back from sharing the good news, but spiritual openness is rising in the U.S. God is calling us to remember why He sent His Son, not to condemn the world, but to save it. If you'd like to learn more how to share your faith or sharpen up your skills on how to share Jesus with others, please join Pastor Rob starting Wednesday, April 3rd in the sanctuary for an 8-week class on sharing your faith. This 8-part video-driven course is full of inspiring stories and actionable challenges from 18 amazing contributors. Well, we've been talking to Angel, and she's sticking around to tell us a little bit more about her work and her ministry and what God has just led her through. And right before the break, she was sharing with us that just the plight of these street children that are at such high risk had really just been a burden on her heart. And she came to a point where she felt like she had to do something. So, Angel, would you tell us at that point when you realize this burden's not going away, what do you do? What happens next?
Yeah. Actually, at the time, I really didn't know what to do. I didn't know anyone who was involved in that kind of work. And so I tried to Google some things, but I didn't know what I was looking for. And so it was actually just still a few years of me feeling this and feeling the need of, I need to do something. but I didn't know what, and I couldn't seem to find anything on my own. So I just prayed a lot, and I would just tell them, like, I believe that you're asking me to do this, but I don't know how. So if there's some opportunity or something that you want me to do, you're pretty much just going to have to drop it in my lap, because I'm not finding it. And like I said, it was still a few years. And then someone that I knew at one point recommended, there came a point when my job was kind of getting rid of everyone. And I felt even more pressure, like, if I'm going to get a new job, I know I don't need a regular job. Like, I need to go do this, what I'm being called to. And so someone I knew had recommended, well, why don't you talk to these missionaries over here? So then I contacted them, and then they told me to contact another missionary, and it was kind of like a chain of people. And so I ended up going to, the person that I talked to was like, well, if you're serious about this, they were in Cambodia at the time. They were like, you just need to come here. Because I didn't ever have this feeling of like a specific country that I needed to go to. I just knew it was somewhere. So the people in Cambodia were like, if you're serious, just come here and take like a vision trip and kind of see, what's here and what ministries you could be involved with. I only had, I think it was like a 4-day break from work at the time. So I took a 4-day trip to Cambodia and was introduced to several different ministries while I was there. And then kind of got connected in that way. I was actually going to go to Cambodia, not with the Nazarene church, but with a different organization. And then at the last minute, something happened and that didn't work out, and then ended up transitioning to the Church of the Nazarene and Nazarene missions. After all of that, I found out there's actually a pretty simple path. We have something called Explore. There's lots of information online, and anyone who's interested in missions can go and register for an Explore event. They happen all over, usually at Nazarene University campuses. And it's just like a weekend where you kind of learn about missions, and they bring in missionaries and also people from the like global center, Nazarene Center. Mm-hmm. And then they interview you and talk with you and see where your calling is, and, kind of match you up to where you might be interested in going. And that's how you start the process. I didn't know that at the time. So for me, that was almost not the end of the process, but definitely not the beginning.
Right.
Basically, talking to people and getting connections is the way to go.
So you had moved from the United States to South Korea. You were working in South Korea as a teacher, right?
Yes.
And then you felt like, hey, I should probably go into missions somewhere else or wherever. And so you just kind of did this experiment in Cambodia. And I think it's great that you're telling us this, because I think there's so many people that don't know how to make that jump. Like, if I'm feeling this burden, what do I do about it? And so we'll definitely put a link to the resource that you're talking about for Explore in the description so that people can take a look at that. And also, many times here at Shepherd, we'll have, like, in fact, right now we have some people from Shepherd in Ecuador on a work and witness trip where they're, taking a short trip, but it's giving them a taste of what missions is like. And that can be certainly a great confirmation process if the Spirit says, yeah, this is where you're comfortable. This is what you were built for. And obviously you got that fire, and you decided to make some more choices based off of that. So what we're going to do, if you're still willing to stick around with this, we're going to finish our episode for today. And tomorrow we're going to come back and we're going to talk about how you ended up in Thailand then after doing your experiments in Cambodia, and what you're currently doing there and ways that we can help and connect with you. So thank you for joining us today for the podcast. We hope that this is a challenge for you to take the next step that Jesus is calling you to. You can follow along with everything going at the church at shepnaz.org. Also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. For Angel, I'm Joe. Have a great day. This podcast is a production of the Shepherd Church of the Nazarene, Gahanna, Ohio.
Email to podcast@shepnaz.org and let us know what you think.